yeah, sure.
Okay.
Please continue.
So, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everyone from Global Health Forum. A warm welcome to our advanced training session on AI and computational cognitive neuroscience, modern approaches and advances in methods and techniques. Today, our esteemed speaker is Ranjith Jaganathan, who is of an adjunct faculty, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bengaluru, cognitive neuroscience researcher, Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Pilani, Goa campus. So, our this advanced training session is organized by Global Consortium of Global Health Actors, Leaders and Thinkers, Global ALT, the Global Health Forum, the Global Brain and Mental Health Forum in collaboration with local delivery partners, Bangladesh Institute of Innovative Health Research. We are once again joined by our Professor Maheshwar Satpathy, the CEO of Global ALT and Director of COE ECCPH India, who will be moderating our this session. Global Consortium of Global Health Actors, Leaders and Thinkers, Global ALT, operates under the Global Health Leadership by Global South Initiative, a flagship project of the Global Health Forum. The consortium brings together global health experts, researchers, practitioners, and policymakers, especially from developing and underrepresented regions, to collaborate on transformative research that drives equity and systemic change in health. As of today, the Global Consortium is the largest dedicated professional consortium of global health, with more than 2,000 leaders from 170 plus countries who have applied to be members through a rigorous process of member selection and full documentation of members' credentials. Our vision is reimagining global health leadership by the Global South, decolonizing global health. We are the global alternative. Bangladesh Institute of Innovative Health Research, who is the local delivery partner, is a non-profit student-led research organization that promotes research culture among students and early career researchers. We are working for early career researchers and students by conducting public health research and regularly organizing training, workshops, and seminars to build capacity among emerging scholars. Some ground rules for our participants. Please remain muted. Although you are all time muted, uh, if you have any questions, you can raise your hands. We will give you a chance to deliver your questions, and you can use the Q&A for any questions or reflections during the session. Your attendance will be tracked from start to end, and an attendance form will be shared during the session in any time. So please be attentive to the session so that you don't miss the attendance form, and maintain a respectful and inclusive environment throughout. Chat box will be monitored regularly. Any unnecessary, repetitive, disrespectful, unprofessional, and hateful comment in the chat box or Q&A targeted towards anyone will be deleted, and such members will be removed from the session. So, I will now request our moderator, Professor Maheshwar Satpathy sir, who is a world-renowned leader in One Health, Global Health, Planetary Health, Brain and Mental Health. He is a much sought after expert in epidemiology, health emergencies and implementation science, and health innovation using the power of emerging and futuristic technologies such as AI, ML, LLM, and generative AI, and geospatial information systems, science and technologies, and remote sensing. He builds on his core areas of expertise in cognitive and computational neuroscience, psychology, and global health to benefit humanity. His sustained engagement with UN Sustainable Development Goals and ethics in the broader area of public policy has led to holistic societal transformations in various LMICs. Professor Satpathy has a humble H index of 79 and cumulative citations over 155,000. He has published extensively 285 plus peer-reviewed scientific articles and book chapters in journals of global repute, notably in Nature, Science, The Lancet, NEJM, JAMA, and lots of, and has offered keynotes and invited talks at more than 200 top international conferences and global congresses in the past 20 years. He has an impressive all-metric of score of 68,255, exemplifying the large-scale social impact driven by their work. Professor Satpathy is currently a research fellow at the Institute for Global Health and UCL Global Business School for Health of University College London, UK, and also is a substantive faculty member at Utkal University, Bhubaneswar, India. He is the director and lead of Center of Excellence in Environment, Climate Change, and Public Health Policy, a joint initiative of Government of India and Odisha since 2023. Now, I would request Professor Maishar Satpathy to introduce our esteemed speaker and start the session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tejan, for the wonderful introduction and very generosity. So let me start. I hope my audio and video is proper, and so I start. Okay. So yeah, so it is my utmost honor and more pleasure being one of my close friends, Ranjith Jaganathan, to introduce him. Ranjith Jaganathan is a cognitive scientist and AI researcher dedicated to exploring the intersections of cognition, technology, and human interaction. He is an adjunct faculty in Computational Studies program at the National Institute of Advanced Studies in Bengaluru and a cognitive neuroscience researcher at the Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Pilani, KK Birla, Goa campus in the Department of Biological Sciences. Previously, he has held research positions at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences in Bengaluru, that is the NIMHANS, and New York University, Abu Dhabi. His interdisciplinary research spans computational modeling, machine and deep learning, visual perception and cognitive neuroscience, with projects in the areas of visual scene perception, emotional scene processing, visual word recognition, corpus-based psycholinguistics, and computational psychiatry, dementia research, behavioral game theory, and recently consumer neuroscience and AI. So a lot that actually I share similar interest with. So I'm very happy that he is joining us. He is passionate about understanding brain algorithms and exploring the missing links between the top-down bottom-up approaches to computation. He is also intrigued by how advanced technologies can mimic and augment human cognitive processes. This lets him engage with profound questions about what is human, nature of self, agency, and consciousness. He has taught courses on cognitive processes, basic and advanced level at IIT Kanpur, and also served as a TA for the Neuromatch Academy's Deep Learning and Neuro AI summer courses for 2 years, and also taught Active Science and Research course as a business straight School of Design. So Ranjith is also a research consultant on mental health technology and completed his international fellowship in health technology assessment (HTA) from the Indian Institute of Technology Madras. He is also applying evidence-based AI technology in mental health, emphasizing precision psychiatry and digital intervention. So such is the wide diversity of the talents and interests, research interests that is represented by not a doctor, but more than a doctor, Ranjith Jaganathan. So it is my absolute pleasure and utmost privilege to introduce you and welcome you to the stage of Global Consortium of Global Health and Global Brain and Mental Health Forum, Global Health Forum, and in collaboration, Bangladesh Institute of Innovative Health Research. So welcome, the floor is all yours. We shall continue with the training for the next 1 hour. We shall take about 10 minutes break, during which we'll allow the participants to ask questions. Participants, please keep putting your questions while Dr. Ranjith presents presentation. While he makes the presentation, please keep putting questions in the Q&A section. They will be monitored regularly, and we shall be asking those the break. And we shall again take all the questions at the end again. That's our tradition, and we shall again ask questions at the end. Okay. So Ranjith, the stage is all yours. Please start. Thank you. I look forward to learning from you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, Professor Maheshwari, Shatabdi, and the other partner institutes in the Global Health Forum Consortium. Thanks for having me. Let me share my screen.
I was having a bit of issue listening to your voice, so could you speak closer to the computer? Maybe that will improve your audio. Yeah. I don't know about others. Now? Yes, it is much better. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So could you all see my screen now?
Yes. Could you please go full screen mode, please?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So, as you have guessed today's topic, I titled AI and Computational Cognitive Neuroscience, modern approaches and advances in methods and techniques. So many bunch of words here: AI, neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience. What is computational cognitive neuroscience? And what are the traditional approaches and what are the modern approaches? And what are the advances in methods and techniques? So it's a bit of a loaded title. I think over the course of time, we could be able to unpack this loaded title and let's see if we gain some clarity or we get more confused. Since AI and brain are more confusing. So at the end of the talk, let's see. So just to give you an overview of what we're going to touch today, I'm going to give a very brief introduction to sort of computational cognitive neuroscience. So we talk about the convergence of both of these areas, how they intersect and how they derive principles from each other. Are they actually deriving principles from each other? Or is just an analogy? So we'll talk about that. And also we'll talk about modern modeling techniques and some tools and technology. And also we'll touch about ethics and future direction, since AI and neurotech, cognitive neuroscience, ethics is something we can't ignore. And again, this is a very vast topic. So I'm just going to give you an overview of it. If you start studying cognitive process, there are so many things to study. Anyway, I'll explain in my further slides. I think before I begin the talk, I just want to get a quick understanding. How many of you in the audience are familiar with neuroscience and AI concepts? Even a basic understanding or familiar with the concepts. Can you just quickly tell me the comment or some other way? Or a poll, if you can start a poll. I'm sure is there a way to start a poll where people answer yes or no? So your screen is free, so you can't.
Hello.
Yeah, your screen is freezed. Yes, so the
Yes, I can see your screen.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
please go
yeah.
ahead.
I just want to get a familiarity of how the audience are they familiar with some concepts of AI and neuroscience. Accordingly, I can elaborate and I can cut short just to get the overview of the audience. If somebody can quickly, maybe use a chat window, or if possible, can we make
Hazel,
a poll?
can you please open the chart? Yeah. Chat, maybe can ask a few questions. Yeah. You can ask
Or a poll.
10 questions
Or a poll,
and chat.
yeah. Or a poll. It's awesome.
Yeah, chat
Yeah,
is open.
if you want to, yeah. Do you want to full chat is open? Poll. Do you want to run a poll? Like, do you have a poll already ready that you want to run?
Just a quick question, I mean, just to know, are they familiar with this concept? Because maybe it could be a mixed audience. I'm not seeing the poll option in my screen. Or it's okay, I can't hear you.
Open. If you want to, if whatever you know about cognition and brain, that's what
I'm not
Ranjit is
familiar with the
asking.
process. I can't hear you.
In chat, okay. Chat is open, so whatever you know about cognitive neuroscience, please put in.
Just an SR, it's not a complicated question. Okay.
There is a bit of an issue. Actually, there is a bit of an issue from either of the side. Sometimes your voice becomes very feeble, Ranjit. I don't know whether it is only mine. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe speak closer to the computer so that mic so that I follow up step here. Okay. Many people are putting many nice comments now. Some are saying anything about it. Okay. Know little bit up to 12 standard. Okay, that's good. Yes, ours versus low. Yes, that's cognition is what makes us intelligent. Yes, definitely. Cognition makes us intelligent. No idea. And cognitive
Whose
research
voice is
impacts
echoing?
someone. Sorry.
Somebody said voice is echoing. Is it from my side? Maybe I can reconnect it.
No, 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 no. Your
Ah,
voice is not echoing. It is only
okay.
a little bit feeble. Yeah. Sometimes it's not very
Okay, the
clear.
volume is a bit low. Maybe I should just speak loudly. If that
Yeah.
clears up.
Yeah. If you have to, yeah, if you speak closer to the mic, then it will be audible. I think
Cool.
it should be fine, not
Okay,
an
they
issue.
are saying it is from my voice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Ranjit sir, is your voice. That's what we have done. Yeah, I think these concerns are there, but it's fine. Yeah, if you speak closer to the mic, just like this, then it will be.
Okay.
I do the same every
Is
time.
it okay? Cool. Okay then. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
now it
yeah, much
should.
better, definitely.
Oh, okay, cool.
A lot of
I have some
people,
idea. Okay.
people are putting very comments now, very interesting comments.
Yeah. I think I'll just wait for a minute or so and then we'll.
Okay, I think that's sufficient. Okay, let Ranjit
It's
teach you. Okay, first.
not teacher, just gonna share some things and it's all co-learn here. So feel free to
Yeah, yeah.
put your
So,
questions.
okay.
Just
You can also put the questions in the chat if you want to ask them question, or you can ask it live also. They can answer that. Yes.
okay, cool.
You have access to the chat, so no issues. It is interdisciplinary field that studies the biological underpinnings of mental processes. Definitely. Less than basic knowledge and memory, attention, etc. Okay, good. Okay, no problem. Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, your screen is coming up. It's not up yet.
Okay.
It's coming.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, now it's up.
So yeah, so the grand challenge here is to understand the brain. As we all know, arguably the most complex system known, one is people say astronomy, that is outside, and other is human brain. And I think these trivia you might know it has 10 to the power 11 neurons and some synapses, and it has a parallel processing capacity, and the brain learns, rewires, and there's a concept of neuroplasticity in terms of cognitive development. But the underlying question here is how do these billions of neurons in the connection give rise to cognition, consciousness, and behavior? So this is the grand challenge in the field to understand. And many of them come from different approaches, different vantage point. They use different tools and methods to answer these questions. And traditional approaches are like people use functional fMRI, not even traditional, even this is modern that we will see later. How people combine different modalities or different neuroimaging methods to infer insights from this. So fMRI, EEG, lesion studies from cognitive disorders or neurodevelopmental disorders, and even behavioral experiment where you check reaction times of different paradigms. So all of these traditional approaches explain something. It explains some processes, it explains or it clarifies something, but it is limited in revealing the computational mechanisms. And what are these computational mechanisms that we will see in the later slide? So here is a gap between what we empirically observe and what is a theoretical understanding. So the question is, how do this low-level physics, like a neuronal firing, a simple neuronal firing from single neuron to network of neuron to population of neurons, how these gives rise to the higher level cognition, thoughts, memories, consciousness, and language. And this is a fundamental gap researchers in the whole domain of neuroscience, cognitive science, even from computer science, even some folks from physics, they're trying to bridge this gap. So when I talk about cognition, or when we talk about cognition, what are its components? Like what do you mean by cognition? Again, there is no single definition of cognition, but we can talk about it made up of various components, like including perception, attention, memory, language, problem solving, decision making, consciousness, emotion, whether cognition and emotion are same or whether different, how it influences each other. Again, it's a very contested topic. So I would put cognition, emotion as part of cognition. And these components, in a sort of mystical way, kind of work together to help us acquire knowledge and understanding. And now you can understand, if you want to unravel each part and study, you will end up in some other part. So researchers, if you see multiple labs, they work on certain areas. They work on only on attention, only memory, only language, only perception. Because each of these cognitive processes itself requires a long year of research and dedication to understand. Again, our topic, what is computational cognitive neuroscience? If you see this symbol in Wikipedia, if you just type cognitive science, you could see this is an interdisciplinary field. So it extracts knowledge from multiple disciplines like philosophy, linguistics, anthropology, neuroscience, AI, and psychology. So each of these disciplines contribute in certain way to enhance our understanding of the human mind, brain. Again, mind and brain are the same or different. Again, other philosophically contested topic. Uh, Again, language, linguistics, how language mediated cognition, anthropology, the role of culture in determining. There are various schools in cognitive science like embodied cognition, situated cognition, that talks about the role of culture or the role of your environment in determining, how your mind or brain functions, and even AI. AI, again, from a biological point of view, they say these are all biologically inspired algorithms, neurally inspired principles. So when you hear these terms, neurally inspired algorithms, biologically inspired algorithm, it should make us wonder, is there a similar algorithm implicated in our brain, and are they trying to be there? Or what do they mean by neurally inspired or biologically inspired? And how do we realize that in computers? Again, psychology, other vast discipline of human psyche. Okay. And the core idea here is, if somebody wants to study cognitive science, they can't be an expert in all of these areas. So to answer my own research question, I extract knowledge from these disciplines. So it's more like that's the concept of interdisciplinary. There is other way like multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, that I don't want to go into. They take us to a different tangent. So combinedly, it gives some insights about human mind or a brain. Again, what I just spoke. Cognitive science provides what functions with what cognitive functions and the psychological phenomena that we are studying. And then neuroscience aspect provide where it is happening, where in the brain or how, what are the underlying neural mechanisms, what are the underlying neural substrate, or what are the biological constraints of the human that we have, and how that kind of shapes human cognition. And AI and computer science, it provides a tool, like how do you model the modeling framework. It provides rigorous analytical tools to study. So overall, the goal is here is to understand how the brain computes, process information, and generates complex behavior by building and testing computational models. So that's the word computational cognitive means. There are other ways to study, but here the goal is to test using computational models. Again, this comes from a philosophical school of thought, functionalism. If you agree to its tenets, that if you agree brain is an information processing system, if you agree that brain process information, if you think that brain, so if you subscribe to these basic tenets of functionalism, then you could move forward to computational models, building and testing. Again, people might have different point of contention. Some might argue, your brain is not really information processes. They could come up with some other, and that keeps the question more deeper and enhanced. So, but here, to make it clear, we are subscribing to, at least I'm subscribing to functionalist school of mind, functionalism, and yeah, that's so. I want to just ground my research. Okay, when we talk about before the role of models, so models, when we talk about computational models, the role of model is not to just describe what is happening. It also could be a hypothesis that you can test, refine, and even falsify. And these models would force precision. If you work on a computational model in AI, you have to know each and every step. It's a step-by-step processing mechanism that you should be knowing before even coding those things. So it forces precision. Also, there are different types of model. Broadly, we categorize that as what model, why model, and how model. What model is it describe what is happening and how it is happening, where it is happening, which localization of the brain, and how the different brain regions communicate while transmitting signal. So you can use information processing or information processing theories or even Bayesian modeling. So people use a lot of approaches in this model, how you model cognition, brain, or mind, or other processes. But it is, before moving further, it is very important, I would stress this point, very important to understand this Marr's level of analysis. So David Marr is a neuroscientist. He proposed that to understand the information processing system, and he says it's very important for us to study this multiple level of explanation that would give us a more detailed answer to our question. And he calls this as three level: computational level, algorithmic level, and the implementation level. So the computational level talks about why, what is the goal of the computation, and how these computations are being performed. For example, if you take vision as an example, what is the computational goals of vision? Is to identify faces, themes, objects, or to just look to get a visual input. That's a computational goal of a visual system. If you talk about algorithmic level, what is the goal of algorithmic level? That is how the computation is performed and what are the representations that is implemented in this level, and what are the algorithms that is being performed to accomplish this computation. And this is where AI comes, where speech detectors or neural coding or neural encoding, decoding, all different algorithms that before I mentioned, people talk about neurally inspired, computational, biologically inspired. It comes from the algorithmic level. This is where this often AI models fit best. And the last, it's not the last, not in a hierarchical manner, but the third level is the implementation level. Implementation level talks about how the algorithm is physically realized in the hardware. So here the neural hardware is human biological brain, but people are developing something called neuromorphic hardware. You have heard of this, an entire different disciplines. People work from biologically inspired hardware. So neuromorphic hardware is a different discipline. And whether you could implement these algorithms in the neural hardware, and how specific brain regions or neuronal firing happens, and how specific cortical columns or the neural pathways, or how it assigns different synaptic weights or neurotransmitter system. All of this you could find different analogy to study this. For example, neurotransmitter system can think of like a road and traffic and different, whether it's a busy road or it's a congested road or this. So you have all this analogy to study each level, computational, algorithmic, and implementation level. So when we do research in cognitive science, if you do more research on where the process is happening in the brain, so there you focus more on the implementation level. If you focus on AI, what are the computations that's performed and what are the sequence of steps that is happening, there you focus more on the algorithmic level. And what is the goal of all this? That is the computational level. So just to give you a very toy example, here talk about human social behavior. Why people talk, the social behavior, what is the incentive, why it is happening. So cooperation, competition, observed learning, it is basically to promote pro-social behavior. And what this is a computational level. Now, how this level is implemented in the algorithm, if you heard of a reinforcement learning mechanism, where we talk about rewards, policies, punishment, depends on how the agent behaves, and depends on how the agent navigate human beings. There are different games and different experiments to study. In psychology, people have done reinforcement learning or conditioning and so on. And we have developed what are the cost-benefit trade-off and also the cognitive maps. Again, the third part is the implementation level, which brain area or the brain circuit or whatever cell that is coordinating to make this happen. A simple analogy is for the bird. It has to fly by flapping its wings, and the wings and the feathers are necessarily implemented for the action of flying to happen. So we can talk about flying without studying feathers, or can we really do that? That's the next slide. So why should we care about the brain? This is a different approach. And computational neuroscience, as I said, it's a bit complex. If we start studying, we'll get into how different ion channels, neurotransmitters, the name of different pathways, and reasons, and how these different pathways contribute to each other, and what are the patterns of activity that is implicated, and what are the other contexts these patterns of activity changes. These are all one study. The other study is behavioral, different behavioral paradigms and reaction time studies that will talk about something else. And we talk about patients, psychology, and that gives a reverse engineering of the study from the brain, which is quote unquote not functioning the way it's supposed to function. Then where the wiring went fault. Is there a faulty rewiring, or is there those things? So it's a bit complex. And people say it wouldn't be simple just to ignore all the brain details and just focus on the cognition itself. Again, this comes from some analogy. So the analogy is your brain is like a biological organ that is a hardware, and your mind is a software. Your brain, this is a basic analogy that talks about brain and mind. Whether you agree to this analogy or not, that we will discuss in the Q&A session. So for example, if you want to learn a programming language, let's say Python, MATLAB, or statistics, so on, you don't have to learn the hardware. You don't want to learn your computer, CPU, GPU, how this performs, how this functions. Without learning that, you can learn these programming languages. Similarly, if you want to study attention, perception, language, the functions of mind, can I study without bothering about the hardware? There are people do there are different labs and different schools of thought where people study this. But to study, you have to study both hardware and the software. That's the beauty of cognitive neuroscience. Again, the grand question will come back: how the brain is actually producing cognition. So for that, we need to know how the brain actually functions. So when we talk about the previous example of an analogy of a hardware, here the hardwares are same. If you have a Windows 11 or Windows whatever version, that version is same for every system. And then you run different software to work on this. Is that a way to assume that human all hardware, the brain is the same? That's again a very contested question that we can discuss. But this is very hard, to understand how the brain actually functions. But it is not, impossible. So people study from different levels. People study from single cell, multiple cell, molecular neuroscience, genetic neuroscience, cellular neuroscience, system neuroscience, computational neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience, social neuroscience, cultural neuroscience, all variety of neuroscience you could find. So everybody is trying to understand some part of the puzzle. If you see this puzzle, these are different fragmented puzzles. Each puzzle gives some clue about how your brain functions in some context, in some under controlled lab experiment, or some agent, whether it's a primate or a rat or a human. That is more complicated than studying primate and other. But the ultimate goal or the grand challenge is to piece all these puzzles together and to get this. And people say AI models and developing deep neural network that provide a promise because we have a plethora of data to understand. And each these disciplines are siloed in a different way, right? Like a molecular neuroscientists won't bother about what happens in maybe a cultural neuroscience or a cellular neuroscience for the right reason. They have their own way of doing things. But to get this puzzle solved, we should integrate all these different pieces to understand how it fits together. Are they fitting together or not fitting together? So broadly, you could see this micro, macro, and the meso scale, or micro, meso, and the macro scales to understand. And your interest in neuroscience could fall broadly among these three categories. If you want to understand the neurotransmitters role in whatever happiness, sadness, and so on and so forth. Again, I think I slightly mentioned before, why AI for cognitive neuroscience? And the question is why now? I mean, in the resurgence of various AI models. As I said at the beginning, there are a plethora of data in neuroscience, like large-scale connectomics project, massive single recording, high-resolution fMRI, TMS, TCDS, so many imaging techniques, two-photon, calcium, so many neuroimaging techniques that are available. And that gives an n number of data to process. And here the traditional statistical methods, they struggle because of the high dimensionality of the data. And also the relationship between this is like complex and not linear. Different. And here the AI's role is to make us understand this, to just get a noise-free data and to do some basic regression, classification, or at least to reduce the dimensionality. There are different dimensionality reduction algorithms and pattern recognition just to see is there a pattern. Because the traditional statistical methods might apply some t-test and whatever the other test that you are familiar with. But in AI, I'll show you the vision example to recognize. And how it recognizes that we need to know. That was not as a black box, that we don't know how it actually does. That could be troubling for some. And how do we model this non-linear and the complex data? Because biological systems are inherently non-linear, and there's another property called emergent property. Where any complex system or any liquid problems that we study, like climate change, poverty, or so on, there is no one formula or one solution. You just apply this, it will get solved. And when the situation develops, new problem will emerge. And when systems interact, you can't predict before this will be the output. So this is an emergent property. Somebody say confidence is an emergent property, or is it a base? Again, a different viewpoint you might have. And AI, particularly deep learning, can capture these properties, these non-linearities, this complexity, far better than the linear models that we have. So if you see the example here, like we have a multimodal brain learning network. I can give the data of fMRI, diffusion tensor imaging, and the EEG. I want to know the functional, the structural network and the functional network. So I don't want to go into details what algorithm is applied, but it applies some algorithm and it could be able to infer some data. It gives me something to, because I can't combine all these modalities in the different analysis. So this would facilitate for me to understand, even from the fMRI Boole signal. What are you seeing? Whether it's that's a neural decoding part, it will come later. Again, the multi-scale, what I said, micro, macro, meso scale, whether your level of how happy you are. I can just ask you a rating scale, or I can give you some questionnaire, just one way of doing it, or put an EEG recording and then measure your brain wave, also measure your neurotransmitters, also measure your other things. The different scales we can do for a clinical task that we could apply. And again, all these are interpretable in a way that
Ranjit.
Yeah. Yes, can you hear
Excuse me, Ranjit. Your voice is fluctuating quite a lot, So could you please speak closer to the mic, or just maybe speak to the computer directly, because
okay, right.
I don't know issues are arising from the mic.
Okay, I'll just reconnect and join. If that should work.
Okay, yeah. Okay, try whichever works. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Now is it fine, or because I can't be more closer than
Yeah, the
this?
voice is fine. The voice is fine for now, but it
Okay.
fluctuates when you start speaking. What happens is in between the voice
I
becomes
see.
very feeble and goes away.
Okay.
So that is they are not able to say it in the chat because the chat has been disabled now. But I'm
Oh,
noticing.
okay, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Just a second. I'll just leave and then I'll rejoin in the same.
Can
I
you
think.
maybe can you maybe speak to the computer directly? Is it possible without the mic,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
earphone?
Wait. Yeah.
Without the earphone, yeah, try that maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just a minute.
Participants, please remain patient. Our trainer would be ready in a minute. Okay, it happens. Technical issues happen, so we need to be patient and we need to be more empathetic towards each other. And participants, please feel free to drop questions because what Ranjit is teaching is a little bit complex. Okay, many of you are coming from diverse backgrounds, having different backgrounds, right? So you need to ask questions, okay? Because if you ask questions, then you are more engaged, and you answer because we'll take those questions.
Okay.
Can you
My
please?
voice is clear now. Is it clear now?
It's much clearer. It's much clearer. Please go ahead. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay. I just removed my
but
earphones
it's
and.
echoing. Yeah, there is a
Okay.
bit of echo happening at your end. Are you using two devices or something?
No, 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 just one. I think because the two are, maybe if you go on mute and then still it echoes, I don't know. Maybe you can go on mute and check.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me try.
Is it fine now? Is it still echoing when I speak? It is? Oh, okay. I don't know.
Please start presenting again. Yeah, let's see how it works this time.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's see. Let's see the new, yeah, yeah. Okay, so as I was telling, the biological systems is inherently non-linear and it's so complex, and kind of AI models and system kind of allows to capture these properties better than the traditional linear models. Again, the why now question. AI systems or AI models allow us to perform something called in silico experimentation. Like as I was telling before, you could study something called neuromorphic computing or neuromorphic hardware. So if possible, can we develop a synthetic in silico experimentation with the same neural mechanism, the same whatever the hardware component that would essentially replicate the property of human brain. That is quite impossible to do it in other biological, systems or an animal study or a human study to run different experiment. But is it possible for an AI to, can we develop such in silico experimentation where we can systematically manipulate such variables, such parameters to understand or to generate novel testable hypotheses for there's a different purposes. And again, you can build models for multiple levels with the abstract cognitive level and then map onto the neural data, or you can get the neural data and then you can map onto the abstract cognitive level. So there are different ways one can go about it. Again, the computational term neuroscience is becoming increasingly computational because now we have the tools, techniques, and technology to study this, to get more computational explanations how it is happening in your brain. So as you see in the pictures, the right, where human learn by imitation, logic, or self-examination, and they perform something called generic intelligence, meta-intelligence, and so on. And physics, we can develop something called in-memory computing, distributed computing, parallel processors. Again, if you don't understand this, fine. I mean, I don't understand this completely how it is happening in the real research, whether somebody is doing all of this together. But this is a potential promising area where people are developing the age of LLM. One we do, because this area will feed into a research in robotics. There are different robotics area that they want the robot to perform certain mimic certain human actions. For that, you need the hardware to do that. So on the information here, so it comes from the ability, capacity, and the information. So the ability part is your cognition part, the human part. And the capacity is the hardware part, whether the system has the capacity to do that. That informs from the physics, what are the underlying architecture or the material, what are the substrate that we could have that ability to perform. And then the third layer is the information, what kind of data or what kind of information that you're providing. And then the modeling approach will be able to tell us that. So here, when we talk about intelligence, they talk about three kinds of intelligence: data intelligence, perceptual intelligence, and cognitive intelligence. Is there a qualitative difference between the three, or is there overlapping? Some are overlapping, some have a different. For example, AI. When we say AI is intelligent, what kind of intelligence you're talking about? Maybe you can say in the Q&A session or a break time. What do you think when you say AI is intelligence, whether it is data intelligent or perceptual intelligence or cognitive intelligence? This is like a Q&A session you can answer later. Keep thinking about this question. Again, computing for intelligence, we are computing for what intelligence? Again, there are hierarchical, clustral, heterogeneous architecture, and how all of this kind of aids us to study and understand human brain. One way to all of this is to understand our human brain. Once we replicate, we need to understand the underlying principle that will aid us to replicate that. Again, this is later is a different algorithmic model and the platforms available for us to do a lot of data processing and data mining and different statistical theories available for us to do such computations. Again, the modern approaches from black box to interpretability. So the early systems are often symbolic or connectionistic models. Again, it's a big topic. What are the connectionist models? And then again, the era came where people talk about deep learning evolution, where vision model, language model, so on and so forth came. If you see in the right side diagram, where you present a stimulus to the CNN layer, we have each layer from layer 1 to 5, and this is biologically inspired. So I'll show the other slide how it is biologically inspired and how the input is computing between these each layers, how it is in a hierarchical way from the low-level stimulus information to the higher level, like a semantic information. If you want to identify an orange, starting with their color, shape, texture, and so on and so forth. Each layer computes each information or each bits of information to give us a holistic picture of, okay, this what you're showing as a stimuli is an orange. Same thing happens in your human brain as well. For example, if you think that some people are colorblind, right? They can't process the information color. So the layer that processes the area that processes color, it can't function the way it's supposed to function. So that layer is not functioning, so you can't process that piece of information. But still can process texture, shape, where it is located, and so on, and other details. And when people model this, they use a deep learning network to model these brain processes. They use some analysis. One is called representational similarity analysis. Again, this is a statistical technique. If you don't know, you can talk to me later, or you can elaborate during the Q&A session. So this is to understand any activity like an fMRI activity or an ECOG or any DNN layer. You can compare that with the brain activity, and then you can map the similarity matrix you can draw. It is called representational similarity matrix or analysis. So there is another reverse of it is called DSA, the similarity analysis. And again, there are different models like encoding models, decoding models. So if you give the neural response, then the model can predict what stimuli you see. For example, now we know your brain is specialized for certain area, like you have a specific area to process face, like a fusiform face area, parahippocampal place area. So if I show the activation from the fusiform face area, whether the neural A model can recognize that this person is seeing a face. It won't say whose face it is. Like it can't say. It can say whether I'm processing a face or a place or an object or some scene. It can say that because we have localized area for scene perception, face perception, object perception, and so on. So if you give the neural response, a model can predict what stimuli that you are seeing, whether it's animal or non-animal or nature-based or a man-made scene and so on. And again, the decoding, that's the reverse of the encoding model. Here the thing is, Satya, the black box to interpretability, as the title says. Though it is very powerful, you get the answer, it's all wonderful, but still it is very opaque. Like we don't know what is happening inside. That's why if you hear new areas are emerging, transparent AI, responsible AI, and so on, because we don't know what is happening, and that allows a number of things to happen, to biases to creep in. That we'll talk in the ethics section. So now it is a bit opaque, and these are emerging areas like responsible AI and transparent AI, explainable AI, and so on. So to interpret this model and how it functions and how it accomplishes certain tasks. Again, this is the same thing that I spoke before, but I'll elaborate this. Machine learning for EEG and fMRI and connectomics model for both functional and the structural connectivity. And again, this is again a generative model to stimulate neural data to explore the underlying neural distribution. So this is a variational autoencoder if you're wondering what it means. These are all neuroimaging analysis for data for machine learning for fMRI, connectomics, or generative models. Again, for the electrophysiology, people who record single cell, multiple cell, network of neurons, or they understand neural firing pattern. Okay, if I'm seeing an place or I'm imagining or I have a mental imagery of something, then I can, from the neural firing pattern, I can understand what I am imagining. What is the mental imagery? What is the stimuli of my mental imagery? Is it a I don't know, animal or a fruit? So it can do this basic categorization. It can't say, maybe it can say food like animal, but it can't maybe big or small, but it can't exactly say what I'm thinking. That's the thing, whether you can read your mind. That has not yet happened yet. And again, how do you translate this into motor commands? There are so many BCA applications. We have seen people with stroke patients and other. Again, these models are very individualized, customized. It needs a lot of training with a single subject or a single participant. And for them, it works. Using your eye movement, you can move the cursor, or using you can sub-vocalize. You should repeatedly sub-vocalize certain speech, and then the system will say, okay, he's saying hello, 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 water, water, water. Some basic words will give you to memorize, not memorize, sub-vocalize, and then you could be able to deliver that in the motor command area or primary motor command area. Again, the behavioral data that I slightly touched upon, where it is inspired from reinforcement learning and NLP, where how you get punished, rewarded, what's your policy, what's the payoff. Again, we all do this in a very, we all do that, but we won't realize this, how it is implicated in our brain. And again, NLP techniques of the linguistic behavior and its neural coordinates. Language is a window to study cognition. It's a big area, how people use language to study. So people say your brain evolved once we started talking, understanding. So language plays a very predominant role in evolution of cognition and other creative activity and the tools that we develop over time. So it talks about this evolutionary principles and how your brain kind of evolved to face these different contexts. The right side again, it's a multimodal imaging. That's an example of the neuroimaging analysis. Like MRI scanner, and you have a visual stimulation that you lie down and you see and you wear an EEG cap. So it's both multimodal, MRI plus EEG. So the person is wearing an EEG cap, if you could see my mouse, and then the MRI scanner, the whole, and then there's a screen placed over the top and some stimuli or some experiment or something. Usually to give you a behavioral response, they give you something to click, like a switch or a response button. They'll allow you to just click left or right or something. And then you record the scalp potential map, like the EEG, electrical activity, and also the neurovascular system, like how your fMRI, the deoxygenated blood level, and board signals, and so on, board fMRI activation. We are combining both MRI and the EEG system to understand how your brain actually performs. Because if you see EEG and fMRI, we have this spatial resolution, temporal resolution. That's a trade-off between that. For example, MRI gives a very good spatial resolution, but not a good temporal resolution. Whereas EEG gives a very good temporal resolution, but not very good spatial resolution. So if you combine these two, and then you get an amazing result to study the spatial temporal gap to understand certain process that you want to study. Again, this is another elaboration of different imaging, diffusion tensor imaging, and then the EEG and the indirect fMRI, and how this all connects with the different networks in the brain. And also here you can study about the flow, how the information flows from one region to the other region. Here you could see the connectivity map from, I don't know if you could see the red and the orange, sorry, yellow and so on, how the mapping happens in your brain and how the flow happens inside different circuits in your brain. And what are the underlying dynamics? So here people study the viscosity and other mechanical engineering concept to understand this as a dynamical system, steady state system, and how that fluctuate with the flow of whatever blood and other vascular parameters in the brain. Okay.
Ranjit,
Again,
we shall
yes.
take a we shall
Sorry.
take a break now, and
Cool.
we shall take a break, a short break, and we shall ask few questions.
Okay, yes. It's a good point.
I hope that is okay. Yes, yes. So let's take a few questions. The Q&A should drop. So this question comes from Ikfan Seni. He is asking, AI today is using multimodal means multimodal algorithms. Asking AI multimodal algorithm, which level does this fall under?
AI today is using multi-modal algorithm. Which level?
Model algorithm, which level does this fall under? That's what he's asking.
No,
I really also don't understand this question, but maybe.
No, which level? Again, it's a computational level, right? AI, we are computing. It's a algorithmic level. When you talk about Mars 3 level, algorithmic, computational, and the implementation, here even the multi-model is still, it's not realized somewhere in a hardware, right? So it's still in the algorithmic level, I would say. That's why you develop new different algorithms or different learning mechanisms, different learning principles, every day. So it's still in the algorithmic level.
The next question comes from Mohammad Fardos Ahmad. He is asking, how can knowledge in cognitive and computer neuroscience be applied in pharmaceutical research, especially in developing treatments for neurological disorders like epilepsy and schizophrenia?
That is what I'm going to talk about next. So thing is, this neuroscience, there's a new emerging area called computational psychiatry, computational neurology. So how these computational principles of understanding, reductionist approach, how we can use AI for drug development or PTSD, depression and so on, how we can understand what is actually happening in a neurotransmitter level, in a very lower level. Not in a behavioral level, we know. We have some knowledge about how it happens in the behavioral level, what are the behavioral manifestation, but how it happens in the neurotransmitter level in a very other underlying principles. So I would recommend you to check this area, computational psychiatry or computational neurology. to gain more insight in these pharmaceutical applications of AI and cognitive neuroscience.
The next question comes from Humaira Khan. She asks, how can AI help us to understand how the brain works and make decisions?
How AI can help us understand how the brain works. Thing is, we don't know how the brain works, so we are trying to build AI system. By that, we are trying to understand to build a system similar to it's a reverse engineering to build a system similar to its functioning, which should understand how it works. So that kind of bidirectional input. Some people sometimes I said your AI is a black box. Sometimes to understand how that black box, for example, how your brain makes meaning out of it. People say when we understand that in AI systems, that could potentially inform how this meaning making process happens because both are like a mystery. We can understand the semantic processes, we can understand the sentence, word level, and everything. But where this meaning making process happens. So, how AI research helps in understanding brain, it can be at different level. If you want to understand the dynamics of the network, region, or how different regions communicate in a like macro level to micro level, and so on. So, it depends on what is your research question and what is your analysis. Okay, it can help in different levels.
Okay. There is another question from Abhay Yahaya. He's asking, please, for the computational cognitive, what role a chemistry-based researcher could play? Please, for this particular field, what would a chemistry-based researcher?
Oh, you can do it in neurochemistry. Your brain is both chemical system and the electrical system. So if you have knowledge about chemistry and if if you understand neurochemistry and neurotransmitters and how the chemical processes happens in different ion channels, if you could model that, if you could study that, you could contribute to cognitive neuroscience. It's a discipline that welcomes people from different backgrounds per se. So they all work in different areas. So we have people from chemistry as well who study cognitive science. So yeah,
Okay.
the background is not a hindrance or a problem.
Okay. Being an LMIC researcher, there is current cut at my place, so apologies. I will not be available on video for now. So I'll be asking the next question to you. Is coming from Praniti Roy. She asks, what does this mean for Alzheimer's and or other neurological diseases, and can new approaches open up doors to curing them?
What does it mean for Alzheimer's and other neurological diseases? Again, Alzheimer's, dementia, there are different types of dementia, right? It's like frontotemporal, vascular,
Yes.
Alzheimer's is a very common type of dementia. And you could find in terms of the precision psychiatry, like I told before, like computational psychiatry and precision psychiatry. So there they developed this multimodal data integration about your brain data and other your genomics, your DNA and so on data to have a very specialized, personalized treatment. And even in neurology, there are different examples. So if you just Google this computational psychiatry or precision medicine is a very broad term. You can see maybe precision in neurology or even precision cardiology. So there are people working on that area. So it can help in drug discovery. It can help in understanding at least why it is happening, what it is happening, and how the decline is happening. Because one of the questions is it's very progressive degenerative condition, right? And the progress, whether it is same for all or whether how this happens, and what are the lifestyle modifications that we can do. So you can compare this with a very bunch of data with different population, different countries. Since I worked on dementia project in Niman, so I have read about it. So in India, we are more likely to have vascular dementia because you're more prone to diabetes and more vascular. So the population, it will increase by 2050 or 40. We have more vascular dementia patients. So it's such a recent review by 2022 paper to read about the dementia research. Yeah.
Okay. The next question comes from Nancy Sharma. She asks, how does converted into movement as neurons are fired from different lobe of our brain and how it's decided the part of the brain fire the neuron related to movement?
Yeah. So for the related to movement, we have a dedicated something called primary motor area, secondary motor area. So here it talks about different part. One is the action, like the movement, like I'm moving my hand. So for the action to happen, I should get the motor command, motor signal. For in some like a Huntington or the Parkinson disease, though I want to move my hand, the intention is there, but I can't move. There is no, so it's more about perception, action, motor preparatory signals, and motor execution. So for this four thing to coordinate, there are specialized part, localized functions. So this come from primary motor area, secondary motor area, where this motor execution happens. So actually, there are different areas that it helps to understand to study
Yes.
motor signals.
Okay. Then there is question. There are two actually interesting questions. First is coming from Iram Khan. He asks, "Is it good to use AI in neuroscience and how it works?" And Ishwari is asking, "Practical demo how we map them with AI." So both are related to AI. So I asked both of them.
Okay. Is it good to use AI in neuroscience and how it works? Is it good to use? Again, good is a very loaded term. We use AI for data analysis, for data processing, and so on. So the good is, yeah, it's good to use in terms of data analysis that you don't know what the data you're working with. So if it could inform and solve reduce some problem in my life, people would use. Is it good to use in neuroscience? I think it's trying to say something else. Maybe if you could repose this question, I would answer. But from a data analysis point of view, yeah, it is good to use. And what's the second question?
The second one is actually a request to demonstrate, how AI brain mapping is done.
Okay. So there are different simulators and different tools available. Maybe I can just suggest you. There is one thing called Nengo. Okay, Nengo. So there are different simulator tools available to study single cell, multiple cell neurons or a network of neurons. There are many simulators. Even in MATLAB you could find, or even if you just type, even if you Google you type simulators for the brain thing, you will come up with different packages and neuron, different things to study. Ngo is a bit easy to implement, and the different toolboxes available to map different functions. Again, what functions I'm mapping, I can't map whether I'm happy or not. That you can't map. But I can map my neural firing. I can map my localization function. That I can map.
Okay. Okay. There is another question coming from Abraham Ajilu. He's asking, how can knowledge in computational neuroscience be applied to aid learners of different abilities?
On knowledge in again, this is a key term that I was telling, right? These are all like biologically inspired, neurally inspired principle. So if you could understand the computation behind how it happens in the brain, you could be able to build better algorithms, you could be able to build better system. And then you can claim, they say it mimics human brain, but what it mimics, what degree it mimics, or what are the fallbacks. So to deepen your AI, so these days AI, I mean, many people do AI. This is just to, I don't know, install some libraries and packages and run something. But to do actual research, you should do linear algebra, neuroscience, mathematics like PDE, ODE, and this neuroscience principle will help you in that to deepen your AI knowledge. Even I'll talk about next in my next thing about how CNN is derived from human
Yes.
visual system.
Okay. Okay. The next question, before we start your training again, Dr. Mehul Kumar is asking. It's a very interesting question. As AI-driven mental health tools and chatbots become increasingly advanced and accessible, are we approaching a future where psychologists risk being replaced by algorithms? And if so, how do we ensure that empathy, ethical judgment, and human connection remain irreplaceable in therapeutic practice? It's a very good question.
Favorite question. I can spend half an hour addressing this question. AI chatbots, even ChatGPT from a mental health perspective. If you heard of a recent news that it suggests people to commit suicide. So when person was chatting with this, you could read whether AI, whether ChatGPT suggests people to commit. You will read articles related to that. So what it basically does is you can't again replace is a very loaded term. You can't replace a human psychologist or a therapist with an AI bot. At least we are not it there. But what people say is when we have a low resource environment where people can't talk to others, and then there's the other concept called digital twin. I would recommend a paper in digital twin where they developed a, therapist and the person who's speaking therapy, like two models or two digital twins, and how they interact in the therapy session. Of course, it will come with a bit of error, flaws, and so on. And the second question is very important: how we can ensure empathy. Again, whether we attribute empathy to AI models, it's a bit philosophical debate whether we attribute such qualities, whether
Okay.
agency, empathy, and so on. But don't
Okay.
worry, it won't replace Sue.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think anybody can replace psychologists. But it's just my bias maybe, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. Even the same goes for the medical professionals and clinicians, other clinicians. I don't think AI is ever going to replace anyone. It's just many people are feeling insecure at the moment. Anyways, let's continue with the training, so that we are all on time. Yes, please.
Okay. Here's my yeah. See my screen?
It's coming up. It's still, yeah. Now it's up.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Again, to continue our other advances like model-driven and understanding, I think this would answer some of your question you asked how we could model brain functions or something. So some are biologically plausible neural networks. So when they develop a DNA and they incorporate these neurobiological constraints like sparse coding, recurrent connection, what are the specific neural types and what are that property, like a stochastic property, nonlinear property. If you understand these property, when people develop the neural network, they try to build in these properties of a network, and then therefore it could do the functions of that neural network. And again, neuro-inspired AI architecture. Again, in July, I'll be teaching another course called Neuro AI. I think registration date has got over. It's a Neuromatch Academy worldwide they're doing. You could check out the material, it's openly available. Something called Neuro AI. What is neurally inspired AI architecture? How you design AI systems by explicitly studying the brain structures of functions like attention mechanism or memory module or even visual process. How it happens in a hierarchical manner. How once you understand this and you could able to build such inbuilt architecture in it. So those are all called neuro-inspired AI architecture. Again, all these are a single topic altogether that we can discuss for an hour. So I'm just giving you a, just introducing you to this topic. Again, the third one that would answer other question, computational psychiatry or neurology. How we can use this model to understand and predict neurological and psychiatric disorder like PTSD, depression, and so on. I think the other booming topic is something called wearable technology. You'll be all wear some smartwatch to detect your whatever your bio parameters, like your step count, your BP, and depends on what sophisticated wristwatch that you're wearing. Can we combine all these wearable technology data to understand how likely you are going to get some, I don't know, maybe a BP or a diabetes, given that if you track other life parameters and other dietary restrictions. So the prediction and the targeted intervention, this population-based or local-based or any disease-based intervention, once we know how it manifests, then we could target those interventions. Again, another promising area, cognitive robotics or social robotics. Whether we are, I think you could Google again social robotics, cognitive robotics, you will find a number of labs that work on this. So where they try to create this modules like a software, as I said, of attention or visual perception or action, or even simple command like grasping, how a human grasps an object, the precision and how it develops over time by learning. So if you observe a child, maybe you can do this as an experiment. If you observe a child while they're growing, they'll all grab like this. They use the whole thing to grab. But over time, the developmental phase, they'll develop the precision. Okay, my bottle is like this, my phone is here. So I need to grab like this. So you know the measurement, or if there is a water bottle, if it is completely filled or empty, then how much pressure I should exert to lift this. So even the simple motor command of lifting a bottle or grasping something, you develop, there is a neural wiring happens over time in your developmental phase. So if you implement this architecture in cognitive robotics, the robot over time it develops maybe social skills. There are other areas called human-robot interaction. If you're interested, you could check that area as well. How in the social setup human and robots interact, and what is that interaction? Whether it is again a big topic, different topic to discuss. So if you could see this figure in uh, again, this is a complicated, not so complicated, but so with the neocortex and the hippocampus, they each have a different properties. They have a rapid storage, individual different experiences. Like if hippocampus is a place where you short memory and long-term memory and so on. If you, you will be familiar with this. And how that generalizes over time and how we could replace that into the neocortex, I mean your frontal area, the frontal lobe, and how you could efficiently generalize this. So in terms of Alzheimer's and other dementia, the first impairment happens is a memory impairment, and then other your executive functions and language and so on. So again, how this replay from the long-term memory to the neocortex happens when it gets deteriorated. The time course we could track if we could able to build such system, that would help. For example, which memory goes first? Is it episodic memory or autobiographical memory or my working memory? So which memory deteriorates, but at which degree, which memory, how it happens. If you could able to build such representation and generalization, you could able to model this. And again, this is a different cascade model by having an elastic model that people from mechanical engineering background could understand well, like a plasticity and metaplasticity, how the wiring or the weak between different neurons, how it, whether it strengthens or it weakens, that happens in dementia as well, in accumulation of tau or other proteins in your neuronal, it will break the link and then the whole thing gone once, it's all or none file part of a neuron, right? So you can't rebuild that pathway, but there are other paths that you can reutilize. So can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can see your slide, but I can't hear your voice. Now I can
Okay.
hear.
It got stuck, so I thought it was, yeah, cool.
Okay.
Again, how do you analyze brain data with AI? One of the questions is how whether AI is good for neuroscience. Again, we have so much of data to understand, right? And there are different analysis techniques is available to understand this. And I'm just going to list all of this. Again, each would take some time to understand. I'm just going to introduce to all these topics so you can later check it out. Something called multivariate pattern analysis, MVP, and decoding. This goes a bit beyond the activation pattern. For example, as I said before, it's a subject looking at a face or a house. So from the localized EEG and the fMRI firing pattern, whether it is from your fusiform face area or a parahippocampal place area, because here the place and the face are the two dominant categories. So using this classifier, we can predict your cognitive state or which stimuli that you are looking at, and how decoding can show what information is represented in a specific brain region. Once I know this, then I do the decoding part. Okay, if I say the firing happens in this area, then this area represents whatever face or place or some semantic information. Again, the encoding model, the reverse of it. So predictive neural activity from the stimulus, the feature that we are showing. If you see the representational pattern on your right, there are different stimuli like a child or a man, coolers, a strawberry, a butterfly. So here you give this input image like 4, and there are different activity. I mean, it will activate different parts of your whatever the system or the network in terms of CNN, and then it computes the similarity. So if you see the similarity of similarity, yeah. So the face of a man, the man, if it will come 0 because it's similar. There is no similarity. So based on this, it kind of computes your DSA or RSA analysis that you can do. And again, which layer computes what information is encoded in which layer, a different topic to study. And again, a connectivity analysis. So we use some graph neural networks to analyze dynamics between brain regions, connectivity and dynamics to understand that in a temporal manner, or which connectivity enhances, or which slows down, or how resilient is one system. Even in dementia and Alzheimer disease, people use graph theory analysis to study this resilience of a system. And then again, the same generative models that I talked about in the previous thing. Here, it could help you to synthesize the neural signals and also fill in missing data. And the last was to identify any anomalies presented in the data or not. On that right below, you could see 3 different GA and VA in the flow-based model. It all try to minimize some classification in their own way. If you know AI, you could understand where this generating, decoding, and inverse happening in the which phase. Okay, this I'm going to be a bit faster since we have only half an hour. So modern approaches from simple models to deep learning. As I said, the earlier connections models, perceptron, Hoppe networks, they offer some limitation, and then it came cognitive modeling, something called ACT and SOAR model. Again, I would recommend you to learn more if you are interested in this actor model or a SOAR model. These are all cognitive models to model an agent. And then you can do different processes like attention memory modules. These are the agent, these are the architectures, like actors and architecture. Again, why deep learning works? Because it processes in a hierarchical manner. With the massive data and the computational power it has, it could do amazingly. And then again, different types of architectures and learning, like feed-forward, convolutional network, or recurrent network, transformers. Transformer is talked about more famous with the resurgence of ChatGPT and so on. And DNN, how you could use as a proxy brain, model your brain processes to study what cognitive task it could do, and also how plausible for that model to perform something. And again, the challenge is the black box problem that we discussed before. We don't understand how in the deep network it computes. That's why it's whatever deep. In the same thing, in a bit elaborate way, how the biological plausible network happens in different levels like sparsity, recurrence, and neurotransmitter and synaptic plasticity. That how you can study this biologically realistic rules like spike timing dependent plasticity. So now these are not incorporated in recent AI models. We don't account for something called interstimulus interval or spike dependent plasticity and how it happens between that's a biologically by your biological system incorporate this, but your actual AI system they don't care about this how actual biology works. And again, the neuro AI architecture we're talking about, people study visual attention, auditory attention, even attention in olfaction and so on. But here, mostly the community is dominated with people who study vision. So I'm going to talk about vision in my next slide. And reinforcement learning, and again, other big topic. Somebody asked how you can study psychiatry and neurology and other conditions in AI. So for that, you use deep reinforcement learning. So now there's another term called RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback. That's how all your ChatGPT and LLM models are learning. They use our feedback to learn more, and then it could respond the way you respond. So it kind of gives you the confirmation bias. It kind of agrees your bias. The question about whether you could replace a therapist, your therapist won't agree to your bias, but LLM models would agree to your bias. Depends on what you're prompting, what you're writing. And the application, again, the reverse engineering, how it happens, in which layer, and whether it could decode that layer. Okay, we're going to discuss a couple of case studies in another 10 minutes. Okay, we still have time. One is vision and object recognition, how it happens in your brain. So from the biological perspective, if you know anatomy and so on, we have two pathways goes from occipital to parietal, occipital to temporal, dorsal and the ventral stream respectively, which processes form and color known as what pathway, and the dorsal pathway for motion and recognizing where it is. It's called where pathway. And there are different magnocellular paths and how the input goes from V1 to V2, V4, inferotemporal cortex, and how the end cell from magno. So this is the anatomical pathways to recognize the object. So this is a biological background, and how it happens in brain we understand from the years of research in neuroscience, started from Hubel and Wiesel to so many till now. Hierarchical processing, receptive fields, and increasing complexity of features, and how it maps. There are different studies that talks about it, how it maps, and there is evidence for it. So now there's it's not a contested topic. We know it happens in a hierarchical manner in human visual processes. So the insights that we gain from this is confirmation of hierarchical processing, how it features learned in different stages. And again, where do CNN fail? Whether they fail to generate 3D perception, whether it can process depth perception. It's a different topic, whether it could process depth. So these are very crucial to understand to generate other new hypotheses, and even perturbations, whether it could handle. And human can handle it fantastically. Even if the object rotates, something called mental rotation. If you see a chair in a different angle, you still think it's a chair as a chair. But for AI system, it's a bit hard to recognize chair as a chair in different angles. So you need to train with all so many angles to recognize, to make an AI system to think the chair is a chair in different angles. But for human, you don't need all those sort of things. Get this, the whole species of deep neural networks from different brain area and how it evolved over time. And now we have human starting from mouse to gorilla, bonobo to in an evolutionary scale. And then, as you know, we all complex human brain. And that inspired different networks in the early stage. And now we have even more advanced model, ResNet, GoogleNet, AlexNet models. Again, convolutional neural networks in the AlexNet model. How it, to give you a very visual description, if you imagine the input, just see the right and left, the elephant as an input. For the model to compute, they have different layers like convolutional, max pooling, normalization, and fully connected layer. So each layer computes different features. One feature compute whether it is a lake, it's a field, a savanna, or it's an animal. Same way your brain also computes different features from V1 to V4. So each, basically the underlying thing is brain have different layers in the occipital cortex, compute different information. Inspired from that, we develop CNN to compute different layers and different features that could be able to tell us what is the input stimuli. That's in a very simple language. Again, I'll just quickly run through this bit mathematical, how it happens. Each layer, convolutional, max pooling, normalization, and fully connected. So maybe it's not for this audience, but I'll just go through the slides. So convolution happens in a very pixel-based thing. So each region, it summarizes the neighboring pixel, and then it forms a coherent imaging. This you get from the receptive field principle, like on and off field principle. Again, the desired outcome of the CNNS, example, the pool 1, convolution network 3, 5, pool 2. If you see each grid encodes different features. Then it kind of tells us the whole thing in the later layer. The beginning layer, we don't know. Same thing happens in your brain also. In the beginning, if you see an apple, we just see a color. It happens in a very low level feature to the high level feature. It is called top to bottom processing. Other thing is called bottom up processing, top down or bottom up. How your memory also influences what you see. That's called top down. Again, amazing resources, 3 Blue and Brown series on deep learning, basic of CNN learning, and thing we would recommend. If you're interested to understand the principle, you can watch this video. Again, a quick run through. This is the input image. If you see this is the input image. Now the system should recognize what is this image. The output is whether it's a kitchen or garden or rock, arc or street. This is your target labels. This is the input label. Again, you assign some values. If it is a kitchen, if it answers as kitchen, but you say water no, 0. As garden, no, rock or street. So initially the thing is the system makes error. Error is very, welcome the error because it tries to teach you the ground truth. And then you compare that error with the ground truth, and then you relearn what is the actual feature that needs to encode. In simple, that is called back propagation learning. So the network sends the input back to the previous layer and it kind of reassign the weights in the neural network. This is a very tall example, but how it reassign, how it minimizes, all of this are different. It can go in depth maybe on a different occasion. Again, if you have a different input of the same, again the same structure, but you see a different location, same rock arc. If it learns from one rock arc, can it learn from different rock arc? To do that, as I said, for a chair to see different chair, you need to train the network with different rock arc. And then the network will adjust its learning, and then it becomes specialized as many through repetition that it goes. So that is called supervised learning. So you learn with a supervisor, someone to correct you, like this is not it is. And then you reiterate and then you learn correctly. Basic principle of supervised learning. Again, once the network learn, then you have to test how it functions. At testing, we give a very different image. If you see this image, the input image, it's very different than our test image, right? See the all 4 input image. It's very different from the test image. At the test, we give a very new image, and then you see whether the network actually learns. That's what the learning happens when you give a new task, not a thing that you're already familiar with. Again, how it visualizes in each layer. Again, if it is too mathematical, it's fine. So we have different net representation in the network, something called like image and different databases to classify. People have run through different databases to study the representations in the CNN network. Again, if you see a scene, this is a scene in Europe and this is a scene in Goa. And then data-driven approach talks about which receptive field captures the maximum information for you to recognize this. So you do a scan, overall a scan, that talks about some eye movement data, how you scan a visual image, the scan path and so on, and the salience of the scan and so on. Again, for estimating the receptive field, the goal is to identify which region lead to the unit activation. If you see a sliding window as a stimuli, here if you see a table, and there are different versions of it. Then you see a particular object as a stimuli. So you move this sliding window across the image. That's what a convolution thing happens. Each pixel by pixel, it will randomly search the small patch. And then if there's a discrepancy, that's where the edge detection happens. So edges are something that divides two, right? See a edge, then there's something else is coming. So the edge detection is very prominent in human brain. That's what people have studied. So when it scrolls through the surface, whenever there's an edge comes, then it detects a different object or a different surface or a different thing. And then it gives back to the network to compare with the original image to compute. Again, there's a pipeline to do that for estimating the receptive field. You give different images of these are all places because the image database have this. And how the object, how it detect object from the deep sea. So different scenes, right? Different day-to-day scene. And if you see the calibrated discrepancy map, it just tags with the different receptive fields for a different saliency in this field. Again, layer one is for places, the image database. Initially, it scans with a different orientation, right? That's what Hubler recently got a Nobel Prize for orientation detection in cats. To detect orientation, the first, and then it adds to some of the layer places. It adds more images, like more detailed. Then layer five, again, a different. So you train all of this with different object, different feature, different stimuli, and then how many percentage of detectors, it emerge to classify something as a place. Again, it underlies different mathematical principle to study each layer by layer. You apply some partial differential equation to study this. Again, this paper is a nice paper to dissect this, how quantifying interpretive for deep visual representation. If you're interested, you could check out this paper. Again, is there a constraint between scene categorization and the action categorization? I want to classify only action to see if the right people are running, moving, planting. There's a board, teaching happens, and there's a flight cockpit where people do. So I want to categorize the actions that could potentially happen, people are doing, and not the scene per se. Then how whether you could do it. Then you could train only with action only unit in your system. Again, to recognize something as whatever plasticity in your brain, whether it could relearn. Okay, once you learn, but your brain you could relearn. It's not that once I learn this, it's fixed. I'm not, I won't change. So you relearn with the new data. Similarly, it could happen whether you could, whether the neurons, whether they can relearn, whether the network has plasticity to relearn this. Again, a different question. People study with different layers and different ways to make a network relearn, and what mechanism you apply for relearning is a different area to study. Again, we compare natural biological brain with an artificial neural network. These are different views, I mean, that you know already. Yeah. So this is what we say something called this fMRI voxel pattern activity that you could get from RSA, representational similarity analysis. So here, this is a voxel within the searchlight. If you see a face of a man or a hand rise and so on, how it computes in your brain. So the top you see how it happens in your brain, and the bottom you see the same image you give how it happens in the CNN network. And then you compare the correlation of both of this. So there are a number of I think some challenges available, hackathons and so on, to do this. Some Argonauts hackathon you could participate. One thing is fMRI data set we have and the CNN data we have, and how it compares and how it correlates between these two to study the similarities between these. Again, the spatio-temporal maps between the human brain, how it happens temporally over time, from early layer to the very later layer. Again, the studying the implementation, it works for specific tasks, but you can't generalize like AGI or something you can't do. Again, it can categorize a network behavior, how it is adapting, how it is learning, and also you take inspiration from biological network to keep learning without forgetting, and the right pruning techniques. Again, pruning techniques are very area in AI you can study. It also gives us to new emergence of new field, if you know this, like cognitive, clinical, perceptual, computational scientist, synthetic neuroscientist. It's very new term for me. Synthetic neuroscientist. You don't need actual biological brain to study this computations. And this is a good lab with more resources. Computational Perception and Cognition Lab from, by the way, I do Olivia from MIT. I wrote a paper mostly during my master thesis. I worked on computational scene perception, so that's why I gave scene perception example. So you could check it out. This is our lab name. Okay, if we have time, I'll quickly go through the second study. This won't be long, like the beginning. Again, language. First, we talk about vision model, CNN. Now we talk about language model. You don't think of direct principle extracted here. We all know Broca's area, Wernicke's area, and how this arcuate facilitators connects between these two areas to provide connection. So primarily, it involves in language production, syntax, articulatory planning, and Broca's aphasia, where the comprehension is kind of preserved. And this area help us to learn sequencing, grammar rule, planning speech. And again, the Wernicke's area is in the temporal lobe. It maps sound to meaning, critical for understanding or comprehension. So people usually say Broca's area is for speech production, Wernicke's area is for speech comprehension or language comprehension, not just speech. Yeah. And then we see the famous LLM models and how it encoder, decoder, and how that is built around this self-attention mechanism. If you know transformer, you know the architecture that I just yesterday. Very toy example of this. You input and then it goes to multi-hit attention and feed forward, and then it goes to other probabilities and norm and feed forward, and then back to the embedding and all of this. Again, it's a different course to study transformer models, so I'll just skip this. Again, if I want to bridge these areas and transformer, so like this is an analogy. Again, don't confuse analogy with explanation. It's not a, it doesn't explain like a brain as a computer. It's an analogy. It doesn't explain brain works like a computer. So Broca's area is for syntax, grammar, and speech planning. For transformer analogy, you could think of sequential processing, masked attention in LLM. So that would give you some syntactic rules for data. There's no fixed grammar module. For example, even if you type grammatically incorrect in LLM, it will know what you're trying to say. Like people, even if you speak grammatically incorrect, they know what you're trying to say, what you're trying to convey. And again, Wernicke's area is for semantic comprehension, meaning mapping, word and embedding. Similarly, LLMs use such dense vector space to model this, similar to Wernicke's area. Again, the connectivity between Broca's and Wernicke's area, where the different attention layers and output are kind of mixed, and then it gives rise to the how it interacts attention and the incoming and outgoing dependency. So quickly run through this. The core idea is this: self-attention parallel processing and how they learn the statistical relationship in the vast text corpora. So any n number of different language models, what they're trying to learn is, can I infer different statistical relationship between the text corpora? But now it becomes more advanced, more image, video. You could give multiple input on how it extract data. That's a different scope to study. And again, how it aligned with brain and LLM. Then you could compare. I'll show you the recent couple of papers, whether how they did this. And then it provides some computational tools and beyond abstraction. And these are the supporting evidence, like whether. So people say, okay, it can mimic, but can it has a sensory motor feature? Can it perceive? Can it know? Again, this is a very interesting paper that talk about this, whether they used fMRI and MEG data. It shows activation pattern in Wernicke's and Broca's and aligned with whatever the transformer heads and other semantic embeddings. The takeaway here is there is no one-to-one mapping between LLMs and so LLMs are not brain models, but they capture the functional properties of the regional variation of the language regions via statistical learning. So again, it's not a structural, it's a functional property. Again, Broca's is for syntax, Wernicke is for semantic encoding. So these two papers, very interesting paper. You could check it out if you're interested. Again, this elaborating the first paper, language models. Here you can find that human knowledge represented, it's embodied. The human, you have input from all your senses, right? Eye, nose, olfactory, gustatory, touch. Whereas LLM input is only the language that you type or whatever thing. So it doesn't have any sensory motor skill, like all sensory motor skill. What semantic you think of, or so different salience, emotion, mental visualization. There is no complete sensory motor skill is not there. Again, it can have a mix of words, like arousal is a measure of what. So whether it can actually perceive if it's not grounded in the sensory motor. And is there any specific reason that we need sensory motor skill to understand language or to understand or to perceive something more deeper? Again, this is the same example they did with other model with Gemini and Palm model, Google's recent when Palm 2 is there. Again, they did with different motor, sensory, and non-sensory motor. Motor sensory is like head, mouth, throat, and non-sensory motor is like balance, arousal, visual, other dominant scales for emotion rating. And how it does is a different. Again, you see different. You see below very beautiful some pie chart of sensory motor compared between human, GPT, Palm, and Gemini. How it captures which whatever topic, flower and justice are the two different topics they are given. Again, you can go deep into this paper, you could read the paper. Okay, I think we're approaching the end of the talk or the session. Ethical implication. So, as I said, the bias in AA model. So, it can perpetuate any bias, gender bias, regional bias, any model or any AA system that we develop. We should be responsible enough to, model. Even what does it mean if we use them to model the brain? If we have the gender stereotypes in language model, again, it will reinforce your stereotype, it will reinforce your pre-existing notion. It's not actually helping you in some way to know more about the world. So we should be a bit careful in inducing biases, even unknown. Sometimes people think of biases later stage. You work on AI ethics. It's not that once you develop a system and then you think of biases. No, you think of biases before conceptualizing, planning. There's something called pre and post and during all three phases of research. We should think about biases and ethics. It's not only we did this and then we think about ethics. Same thing about climate. We did this and then we think about climate. Even before planning, we have to think about all of this. Again, neuro privacy and data security. Since we collect so many of data, is there a way to manipulate us? And there's a recent law in California, if you read something called neural privacy, something called consumer privacy. They read that you can't collect certain data from consumers to manipulate them to buy certain. And then again, mind reading and manipulation. We're really not there yet, but is there a potential that we could, or people not telling us we're already there to some degree, we don't know. And again, the philosophical question, we should have a separate session for this. If an AI model can perfectly stimulate human cognition, then what are the implications for our understanding of consciousness, free will, what it means to be human? So, what it means to be human in the age of AI, that's a very famous topic. My favorite speaker, Yuval Noah Harari, he talks extensively about this topic. And it also leaves it up to question what is meant to be human. Because since AI came, we talk about whether AI have agency, whether it have empathy, whether it has this, that. But as a human, whether we have empathy, whether we have agency, whether we have all of this, the question. So we can think of what it means to be a human in the age of AI. Again, in NIAS, we organized some, part of it in August last year, humanitarian leadership in the age of AI. How it changes even leadership, how do you approach the advancement of AI? Again, future directions, these are all future directions that I've already touched upon in some ways. I'm just going to read multimodal AI, comparing single to genetic behavioral data and then personalized medicine, explainable AI and real-time BCI implication, and then the drug discovery or neuromodulation to target certain population or psychiatric condition. Again, the challenges is of something called the ground truth problem. Then we could actually, whether we fully understand the model that we are developing, and the different level of abstraction still there to fill it up. And the computational resources, that is a big problem. There is one research says each time you do chat GPT, you're consuming some 3 to 5 liters of water. So again, it comes with computers, it comes with infrastructure, it comes with data center. Somewhere out there should be a data center for us to, to do all this ChatGPT, Google, and so on. And again, data scarcity and then again the triviality problem, whether it is trivial or it can provide new novel insights. Opportunities, there are a few that I mentioned. Again, it could be repetitive. If we could understand whether we could build true AGI, whatever the true AGI is. Or in the other word, we more can understand a deeper understanding of ourselves. So what makes us conscious, intelligent, and human? Forget about whether AI is conscious, intelligent, or humane. There's something called humane AI. So are we all of this? It raises a philosophical, deep, existential threat of AI. So there's another group people are working on existential risk of AI. Already people talk whether it will replace me or replace you, and what it means to be all of this. It's a very philosophical question, and if you're into books, this is the amazing resources, computational cognitive neuroscience. It's very freely available, open source, so you can download this book. Yeah. And then thank you for your attention. And done with my talk.
Okay, thank you, Ranjit. What an exhaustive training. But I'm sure those who are listening to this, they will go back home with a lot of thoughts in their mind, all thoughts revolving in their heads, and hopefully will make some sense at the end of the day. There is a very interesting question asked by someone who is eligible for this training, considering both professional and educational background. In fact, that's something should be talked about more, because I think brain science or neuroscience is everyone's cup of tea, should be everyone's cup of tea, not just psychologists or neuroscientists.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll please have some water, relax yourself, because I'm going to ask you a lot of questions which are coming now in the questions. Okay, so participants, please keep dropping questions in the Q&A section. I'll be taking questions now, and I'll be asking your questions straight to Ranjit, and he'll be answering all of them. Okay, whatever is possible in the next 20 minutes. Okay, so I hope you're ready, because we have like a torrent of research questions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Jushu Musa, who is one of the most active contributors to all our training programs, he's from Africa. He asked these 3 very complex questions. I hope you'll be able to answer them. He's saying, thank you very much for the insightful presentation so far. I truly appreciate the knowledge being shared. I would be grateful if you could kindly address the following questions. First is, how can insights from computational cognitive neuroscience enhance the interpretability and ethical application of AI systems, particularly in real-world public health settings? And second is, what are the current limitations of AI models in accurately simulating human cognitive processes, and how close are we to achieving true human-like reasoning in artificial systems? Third is, in what ways can low-resource countries like Sierra Leone, he comes from Sierra Leone, harness computational neuroscience tools to strengthen the mental health research and develop effective intervention? It's a very interesting question. I hope you will.
Yes. Yeah, very fascinating, thought-provoking question. How can insights from this enhances, especially in healthcare system? So if you're interested in this, I would recommend a course from Alan Turing Institute called Operationalizing Ethics in Medical Setup. I did this a couple of years ago. It's a very it's a good course. So here the thing is, since you learn about human biases and how this creeps in while developing the system, you should make sure that that doesn't happen. So you learn about different learning principles like heuristics and other biases in terms of, so if you understand human decision making. Again, as I said, the computation is a very different topic. You can study in terms of memory, decision making, problem solving. So if you study this, how humans solve problems, and if they develop certain AI systems, whether it is free from the ethics, or whether free from biases or not. So that is an interesting thing to study. and to develop any. But interpretability, I'm not sure. For ethical application, for interpretability, it should come from mostly from the mathematics and physics or something, from the model that we are developing. So you need more rigorous mathematical principle to study each network and tease out, and then whether it is interpretable or explainable. But with the data, again from the neuroscience data, you could study like whether interpretable fMRI data, interpretable whatever EEG or something. For that, you should know about the data, what data you're getting, what experiment it is, what task it is, so on and so forth. And then you apply this interpretable principles to elevate your own research. And the second question is some limitations, right? Limitations of models. For limitation, we have so many limitations. Some we don't even know. It all says that it mimics, right? We don't know what degree it mimics, and so many in terms of attention, memory, even consciousness, even so many limits, so you can't process or simulate all of this in a system. So there's a huge limitation. Even reasoning, you can't, because we don't understand even how human reason. So how do how do you build this in an AI system? We know certain heuristics, certain principles, certain thing. And again, see, if we talk about cognition, cognition needs context. So if you understand cognition without context, it's so all of our brain has evolved to survive in a particular context in which we are in, whether you are from, I don't know, different country, different background. So your cognition and context are very intermingled. So you can't study cognition without knowing the context. So to study human cognitive process like reasoning, you should study something called embodied cognition or a situated cognition. And then if you could inculcate that in modeling this, then yeah, that's what people try to model only motor action and so on, not with the reasoning process.
Okay.
What's
I'll
the
go.
third question? Only two, right?
In the interest of time, Rajit, let's just go to
Yes.
the other questions
Hmm.
because there are many people's questions which needs to be answered.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Sonia Chaudhary is saying, I'm from Bangladesh. My question is, how can AI reveal the actual cause of autism, which is still unknown?
Sorry, what's the?
Can AI help in getting to know about the cause of autism?
Can know about the cause of autism. Okay. See, in terms of psychiatry, now there is a new, I've been a mentor for something called neurodiversity, like developing toys for neurodiverse kids, organized by IIT Madras last January. So here we talk about whether autism, ADHD, and other neurodivergent thing is actually a problem, or we need to accommodate as a society to need to welcome different people. We need to be inclusive enough. So there is no causes. Could be I can just list. It could be environmental cause, genetic, and so on and so forth in whatever. But this is from a different point of view that I'm answering. So whether AI could identify these causes, if we give this multimodal data like genomics, DNA, brain imaging, and other data, and if we have a longitudinal data set, and then you train that with different autism population, then it can maybe potentially learn and tell the causes, which is a contributing factor to what
Okay.
degree.
Okay, let's go to the other question. Humaira Khan is asking, to what extent can bioinformatics contribute to the advancement in computational cognitive neuroscience?
Bioinformatics, again, it's a very broad field. People who want to, in statistical principle, or I don't know, bioinformatics is, yeah. So what area in bioinformatics, or what is, whether you are studying some drug discovery and so on. So people fall under different categories. Bioinformatics is again a broad topic, right? So how it can contribute, a number of ways it can contribute.
Yes, definitely. Bioinformatics per se doesn't make any sense until unless we have a proper concept or particular field inside bioinformatics. because there are multiple cells inside body. Yes. Okay. Dr. Sriram is putting a very interesting futuristic question. He is asking, given the increasing success of AI in mimicking cognitive functions, do you think this could eventually lead to the systems that bypass biological evolution entirely?
That's an interesting take. So now people talk about, again, I'm revealing more about. So there is something called uh, uh, transhumanism. Okay, transhumanism says there is, so the divide between biological and organic and inorganic is bit fuzzy. For example, let's say if you have a pacemaker in your heart for other function, pacemaker is an inorganic thing. Pacemaker is an external device. But that becomes part of your biology to help you, to make you, alive because of the pacemaker. So over time, people developing chips for your brain, Neuralink, and so on and so forth. So potentially, it could be something called hybrid intelligence. People don't talk about AI intelligence or human, talk about hybrid. How these two systems interact and co-create some new form of intelligence. And even people that develop, even for AI systems in the advanced level, people are thinking about why do we need to mimic only human perceptual system? There are more some animal or even bat goes by, can we do different species and try to mimic them? Because humans are a bit limited in that way. You can rotate your eye in a 360-degree. But there are some animals and crocodiles, something they do with different eye movement. Whether you could mimic that principle. So it's already, whether it can overpass or whatever hijack, that's a fear. There are many science fiction movies. Yeah. That's what
Okay.
it comes. AI governance comes there.
Okay. Someone named Nancy Sharma is saying, I think this AI and computational is under trial 2 or 4. Person got Neuralink chip for treatment of Parkinson's, if I am not wrong. They are talking about the implant PCI.
Yeah. I mean, so they're doing a trial and error basis.
Computer.
So of course, it could go wrong, and it's not a foolproof test that it will work, because at least for a heart, it's fine. It helps you in pumping. It helps you in rewire, whatever. But for the brain, we don't know, since we have neuroplasticity. Imagine if someone loses their hand, they learn how to draw using their feet. Repeated training. So your neural rewiring, pruning, it happens. Your system will take care of itself. But with the chip and everything, you might become more advanced, or you might deteriorate what is already there. So it could be a risky choice. But again, for this research, some people should be, we don't know. And the process, even the brain research, you see that people do lobotomy and everything in the beginning, with postmortem studies and all of this to advance this level. So I don't know. Neuralink is a bit dangerous.
Okay. Tejal, could you please confirm that our video is getting streamed on YouTube or not? Because I can see that button which shows that it is streaming.
Yes.
It's not streaming right now, is it?
No, not straight.
And the streaming has stopped. Was it streaming during the session?
No, we haven't streamed.
We are not streaming. Why?
You said
I didn't say not stream the entire period. I said you stop for a minute. Okay, anyways.
so. We will upload the recorded version.
Okay. Abba Yahaya is saying, thanks for doing justice to my question. I have little experience with neurochemistry, rather an advanced of nanotechnology. How do you see application of nanotechnology in brain tumor treatment?
How do you see can you repeat?
What are the applications of this thing, neuroscience in brain tumor treatment?
Interestingly, in Pittsburgh campus, people work on cancer research. So we had a discussion that is there any neurotransmitter signaling pathways Is there a correlation between that and detecting some, cancer? So I said it might be for. I think he's working on what is called some. What do you call it? Reproductive. Some cancer research. I forgot the title. And we had this discussion. So it's a potential area to explore whether your cancer cells which secretes in your body, because your brain is it all the nervous system is all interconnected with efferent neurons and efferent neuron that you might know. So is there a correlation or is there a change that you could see in your brain before these cells started proliferating this cancer cell? There are changes in your neurochemistry that we don't know. I mean, I don't know since I don't work in cancer research, but it's a good question to explore.
Okay. Samuel Adepi is asking, is there a database that has information related to neural networks? For instance, in bioinformatics, there is NCBI and other database for getting sequences and doing biological research.
Yeah, for biological, there are many biological platforms are available. Honestly, so I can't list out now. There are, I think if you go to GitHub and if you search this exactly, what is NCBA? There is NCBA. I'm not sure what NCBA. But for
The
bioinformatics,
NCBI stands for the yeah, their biological, but the question they are asking is about neural networks. So,
Okay. Neural networks. I mean, for any database, you can train with any data. So really, since I work on cognitive science, I spoke only about fMRI data and EEG data and other data. So you can give any data. You can give protein sequence or genomics data set, protein sequence data set. You can give any data set, and the network will learn. Is there a database available? I'm not sure in terms of protein sequence and DNA data set, but I'm sure it's there. I can't name it now, but because people do anatomics and
okay,
proteomics for research, so they do this. They make some database.
yeah, okay, uh, right. The next question is by Amina Aliu, and they're asking how does the integration of AI and computational modeling in cognitive neuroscience can help in unraveling the neural correlates of higher order cognitive functions such as decision making, attention, and working memory.
Yeah, so this we should go with the reductionist approach and holistic approach both. The reductionist approach, if you watch one of my slides, I presented something called the working memory capacity. There's something called visual sketchpad and auditory loop, and then how it functions. So if you target each of these specific loops and then you think what are the functions happening inside the loop, potentially that could inform how your working memory functions. This is only for the working memory answer. Again, for decision making, decision making is again a big topic. So I had a course called decision making where we study about all reasoning, heuristics, problem solving. Then it even evolved. Whether we talk about social decision making, moral decision making, economic decision making, ethical decision making, with which decision making we are, or all are linked sometimes. Ethical, moral, economic linked. So that how you, it's an interesting question. Decision making. Yeah. So whether you could use this to, of course, you can study given if you could find some synergistic area to study this. Like same thing
Okay.
happening in my people study this in different places.
Yeah, okay. We go to the next question by Baba Boya. He's asking ethical and societal risk. Who will control these technologies? How can we avoid abuses? For example, mental surveillance, cognitive manipulation, unequal access, etc.
Who can control this? I think that's the whole topic of AI governance. If you see in Europe, they have this something called GDPR and how the data should be used, how we can collect. And AI companies are saying it will hamper our creativity. We can't create, So AI governance is a big topic. It's gonna, I mean, people are already talking about policy making, AI guardrails, how the data should be used, how it is collected. So who will control depends on each country's geopolitical situation. Yeah, what's the other part of this question? I forgot. Who will control it? That's AI governance topic.
Yeah, certainly. It's quite a vast area on its own. We have to probably read that and more, get to know more about the developments in that field. Yeah, everything is not possible in a forum like this. We are talking about cognitive neuroscience, that's not AI governance and a digital ethics, which is a separate area on its own.
Yeah.
And people are doing PhDs in that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is from Ramya P. She is saying, I am Ramya, working under EDSS, Electronic Decision Support System, trial in maternal health from PHFI. Current trend of AI is beautifully used in neuroscience. My question is, are there any studies in currently going on in maternal health?
Currently studies going on in?
The use of AI in maternal health.
In maternal health?
Yeah, maternal.
Maternal health, not sure about studies in maternal health, but there are studies in going on in old age population. That I am not, but I'm not sure about maternal health. I think some student approached me 2 months ago to talk about menstrual health, whether you could use it, but we didn't happen to chat further. So this is an interesting area to work on because people now that something called age tech. When we talk about technology, we talk about only young, able, whatever people. But the age tech kind of question that standard paradigm. Similarly, can we do study on maternal health and use AI, neuroscience? It's a good area. Thanks for asking this question.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, the last two questions for you, Ranjit. Uh, from Mohammed Firdaus Ahmed, he's asking, how is AI integrated into computational neuroscience or pharmaceutical, and what skills are the most important for someone looking to build a career in this intersection?
Pharmaceutical, like I said, for the drug discovery or some neurochemistry, for those things you can potentially contribute. Again, the thing is, it's not only you will be working. Imagine if you are in a lab or in a team, you bring your own expertise, and there are other people who bring their own expertise, and then you will collaboratively do. So don't think you have to learn all of this concept on your own to contribute. So it's good to find a collaborative team if you're interested in contributing. Whatever the area in the culture.
Okay, the last question for you, Meg, no, it's not the last. Yeah,
Okay.
it is the last because there is just a comment. Okay, Megachanda Panturu is saying, how can the spiking neural network SNNs designed to mimic the temporal dynamics of biological neurons be optimized to replicate the computational principles of predictive coding in the human brain, particularly in the context of hierarchical sensory processing?
Yeah, you're asking how this SNN spiking neural network do this temporal. So that's a property of this RNN and SNNs. It encodes. So for example, in CNN, you say it's a feed-forward network. It forgets the layer. It gets abstract from the one layer to the next layer. But in terms of SNN and other thing, it holds something as memory. So it looks back to the previous layer to encode the next layer. So there it computes the temporal dynamics. And I'll share this a good conference on SNN. If you Google SNN, the spike neural networks, even I'll share the link maybe later if you're interested, you can just message me. So they are the model about SNN properties and temporal dynamics, even time perception, and so on. People studying temporal dynamics in this.
Okay, so with this, all the questions are over. Today, our participants probably got too exhausted by listening to the intense and very in-depth nature of the training related to neuroscience. I understand that not many of them are from neuroscience background, so it's quite tough to actually explain and understand topics related to both the marriage of AI, computational cognitive neuroscience, and again AI, and then again healthcare, medicine. So many things all together. It was quite a primer for people like me, but it was quite an advanced introduction to someone who has never got introduced to real neuroscience, in the past. So it was quite a great presentation. So thank you so much, Ranjit, for all the wonderful wisdom you've just shared with us. It was wonderful to have you. And I want to inform you, the Global Consortium of Global Health is indebted to you for your presence and for all the wisdom and learning that you shared with us. I'm sure our participants enjoyed it. Okay, and they are taking away a lot of wisdom and thoughts in their brains, and they'll be using some of this knowledge and skills in their future work, in their research work. And many of them are asking questions related to career guidance and what career they should pursue, all that thing, which I did not get the opportunity and time to ask you. But they are very interested and they are showing a lot of interest, which is really great to see. I also want to inform you that all the participants who attended this today's training program, you shall receive your certificate of advanced training on research methods in health and ethics, delivered today by Ranjith Jaganathan on cognitive computational neuroscience in 7 days. Okay, that means 5 working days. So please allow us 1 week time. Do not send me messages, personal messages saying like, when am I getting the certificate? Recently we got an order. When are you going to send me my certificate? Where is my certificate? So please don't send such messages to me in personal chat. Okay, we will be sending you your certificate and it will be hand signed by Mr. Ranjith Jaganathan as your instructor for today. Okay, so all of you will be receiving the certificate very, very soon, within 1 week's time. And as a token of appreciation, Ranjit, I want to just inform you that we shall be sending you a letter of appreciation, a certificate of appreciation to you. The Global Consortium of Global Health, the Global Health Forum, and the Global Brain and Mental Health Forum, and the Bangladesh Institute of Innovative Research want to congratulate you and also want to thank you with immense gratitude for your presence and sharing all the wisdom and learning. We had a wonderful session today and we look forward to working with you and also welcoming you on future occasions. And I'm sure our participants would also enjoy interacting with you in the future. So with this, I hand over the mic to Hazel to do the deeds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very, very much to Mr. Ranjith Jaganathan for that deeply insightful session on AI and computational cognitive neuroscience. Your expertise and clarity have truly added immense value to our understanding of this cutting-edge field. To all our participants, thank you for joining us today. We hope this session has sparked new ideas and perspectives. Do remember to fill out your attendance and feedback form to receive your e-certificate, and stay connected with the Global Consortium and our partner forums for more such advanced trainings and dialogues. So this is NB Faisal Ahmed on behalf of the organizing team signing off today. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep learning. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Ranjit, I shall be in touch with you very soon, and the admin team would be in touch with you regarding the e-signature and the lecture materials, because many people actually do request. They are right now sending me personal messages on WhatsApp also requesting for the recordings. So recordings will be provided to all of you. You will be finding that on the YouTube channel of Global Consortium of Global Health. Okay, please drop the link of the Global Consortium in the chat so that they will have access to that. And yes, attendance link has been shared in the chat as well, so please do that. Okay, and if you want to share any of your moments of great insight or anything that you really enjoyed about this session, you are free to put that in the chat now and we'll read them out while Ranjit will leave, because I'm sure he's quite exhausted after giving 2.5 hours of lecture. It's been wonderful listening, but I'm sure when you give the lecture, your body metabolism and brain metabolism increases, then you feel too tired, and that happens. Because I have given lectures of 3 hours each, so I understand how tired and exhausting it can be. Yeah. But it's been wonderful. There is a lot of very good comments coming in the chat right now. I'm able to read, and that's also testified by the emojis that you are receiving right now. It's been almost 2.5 hours for them. They have been on the call for almost 3 hours now. They have been listening. And there are still 176 people listening, 77 listening to us. That shows the amount of interest and enthusiasm they have and the commitment they have. So thank you so much, Ranjit. I shall be giving a call tomorrow morning to talk. Okay, but for now, please enjoy your Saturday evening. We have almost spoiled your Saturday evening, I know, but I hope you'll be able to enjoy
I
the rest
have
of the
another
evening.
meeting to join in half an hour. No,
Okay,
it's a
okay, I know, I know.
US timing, so it's a bit complicated. Maybe I should skip that meeting. The
Yes,
company I'm consulting for, they said will. Anyway, so
yes, yes.
thank you so much for having me here. It's very pleasure to be here. Even the questions are very, informative and made me to think, and very engaging audience you have. So
Right. All our brains are cleared
kudos to
now.
you and your team for managing
Not
it so well.
And I'm looking forward to have you on some of our research mentorship for our participants also, okay, so that
Sure,
they'll benefit from your mentorship, okay,
sure.
and yeah, okay.
And also,
So
if you have any questions, please
see you
feel
soon.
free to message me on LinkedIn or something if you have any other questions. So that's
Yes, yes. Yeah, Ranjit has shared his email ID and as well as LinkedIn. So all of you are free to contact him. He's quite a famous celebrity
oh,
on LinkedIn, has close to 10,000
not as okay.
followers.
This is the if you want to share, this is what. Yeah, you can scan this an email ID. You can email or you can if you scan this, it
Yes,
go
so
to my
participants, you may find the email ID, you may note down if you want to contact Ranjit on this, okay. There are some issues related to some attendance link they are posting, please respond to them, okay, in case they are facing anything. And yes, that's all from my side. I think it's wonderful to talk to you and have you always. And I look forward to carrying on with our research project, which we have been planning for
Yeah,
6 months now. So let's start talking more and let's get it rolling. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Thank
yeah,
you. Have a wonderful evening. Take care. I'll
yeah,
see you
yeah.
soon. Take care. Bye.
All have a nice weekend. Yeah, bye.
I'm sure. Okay. Take care. Bye. See you. Okay, so participants, thank you so much for staying on board and listening to all of us and the wonderful lecture that we just had. What a terrific lecture and exhaustive one, right? So I know. So please keep putting any messages. Yes, okay. Yes, please keep putting messages. How you like the session? What is the highlight of the session for you? Which point that you really enjoyed? If you want to put it in the chat, please put it. And in the meantime, I just want to notify everyone, it's not all, tomorrow evening 6 p.m. we have terrific lectures happening, distinguished lectures given by Dr. Lakshmi coming from Tamil Nadu, talking about neurobiological disorders, and then again ended with one of the world's stalwart, okay, Professor Dilip Jest, ex-president of American Psychiatric Association, as well as the current president of World Federation of Psychiatry. Okay, so he is an eminent specialist coming tomorrow. Okay, not many organizations which claim to be very big organizations are able to get such stalwarts, but we are able to get it because of our credibility, because of what we have been able to establish as a global community. So we look forward to hosting it tomorrow again at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Okay, the attendance link has been shared several times in the chat, so please please drop it once again. And the attendance link is opening, people are able to fill it. You may be experiencing issues because of poor internet. Okay, so please keep filling. Okay, and once you leave the Zoom, I think you will be able to fill it up. It takes a bit of internet to open that form. Okay. And please do follow us on LinkedIn. Okay, all our organizations, the Global Consortium of Global Health Access Leaders and Thinkers, the Global Health Forum, the Global Brain and Mental Health Forum, and the Bangladesh Institute of Innovative Health Research, all of them exist on LinkedIn and also on Facebook. So please like us, follow us, and support us, because this is all done with a lot of altruism and love for all of you. So all of you have been absolutely great. It's been wonderful to have you. So thank you for your constant presence. Okay. If you want to put any comments related to your thing, your experience, then please, okay, put it in the chat. That will be great. And that's all. With this, the meeting is officially over. We shall close in exactly 2 minutes time. Okay. After that, the meeting will close. So all of you, those who have not filled the attendance link has been put in the chat. Please fill it. We'll close the attendance link as well as the meeting. Okay. Thank you so much for the wonderful comments that you have put in the chat. But we shall leave because we have another meeting starting in exactly 2 minutes time. So have a lot of time.